Good afternoon. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Kimberly Harper. She is an assistant professor in the Department of English, Modern Languages, and Mass Communications here at Albany State University. Dr. Harper earned a Bachelor of Arts in English from North Carolina A&T State University, a Master's of Technical and Scientific Communication from Miami of Ohio University, and a PhD in Technical and Professional Discourse from East Carolina University. Her dissertation research examines the treatment of African civilizations in post-secondary humanities textbooks. Prior to pursuing a career in higher education, she worked as a technical writer for companies such as Volvo Parts North America, Genzabar, and Ron Bett Consulting. She joined the faculty at Albany State University in 2009, and she teaches a variety of courses for the Department of English. Her goal as an educator is to create an environment that encourages students to experience education as a practice of freedom that helps them to realize their own potential. In addition to her teaching duties at Albany State, she is also the director of the Foreign Language Institute, where she works to bring language and cultural programs to the Albany State student body. Her research interests include critical discourse analysis, hip-hop studies, technical communication, document design, and rhetorical theory. A student-centered teacher, Dr. Harper not only teaches her students well, but she also promotes personal growth as well as lifelong learning. Her presentation this afternoon is entitled Mental Health and the Hip Hop Nation. I am honored to call her my colleague, and I present to you Dr. Kimberly Harper.
Thank you, Dr. Bonner, for that gracious introduction. And thank you all for sticking around this afternoon to hear my talk. I arrived at this topic, which is an ongoing research interest, as a result of a conversation that I had with my 1102 composition students a couple of years ago. When we start working on their gender essays, we read a number of articles, and one of them is Joan Morgan's article, our keynote from this morning, From Fly Girls. And in that article, there's a particular point that I encourage a discussion, a particular quote. As a Black woman and a feminist, I listen to the music with a willingness to see past the machismo in order to be clear about what I'm really dealing with. What I hear frightens me. On booming track after booming track, I hear brothers talking about spending each day high on malt liquor and chronic. Don't sleep. What passes for a 40 and a blunt good times in most of hip-hop is really alcoholism, substance abuse, and chemical dependency. When brothers can talk so cavalierly about killing each other and then reveal that they have no expectation to see their 25th birthday, that is straight up depression masquerading as machismo. So, like I said, I make my students have a conversation about this particular quote, and I usually get a variety of responses. Normally, people talking about why they get high and why they drink. But my aim is to get them to think about the narratives of hip hop. Why is it that certain things are reproduced over and over and over again? So I push them to remove the celebrity from the discussion and think about, for instance, if Snoop Dogg lived down the street from you. We all know his professed love for marijuana. So if you passed his house every day, would you say, oh man, Snoop lives there, he's high all the time? Or would you just say, oh, Snoop? You know, when we remove celebrity from the discussion, it kind of changes how we look at the narrative. So that's one of the reasons why I have my students have a discussion about that quote. I pushed them to also think about the music's lyrics and the lifestyles portrayed, but not as a means to condemn, but a way to discuss gender, power, race, money, whiteness as a cultural category, all of those things in our society. So in this particular class, the debate was so heated, it turned into a conversation about who had it harder, black men or black women. And I was not prepared for the level of intensity that they demonstrated in the conversation. I was just totally unprepared. And as a result of that, a few students hung around and we talked about it. But one particular student, a young man, came to me the next day, and I was prepared to give him my, you got to get your mind right, you're going to fail this class speech. And he started crying in my office and talking about the stress that he was dealing with on a daily basis as a young man in college. And what dawned on me is that in addition to the regular stress that he had as a college student, he was suffering from survivor's guilt because he made it out the ghetto and he felt guilty. And those were his words. He said he was depressed, he got high all day, he was partying, he wasn't going to class, and that's why his grades were slipping. So, like I said, I wasn't prepared for that conversation, and I started thinking about, okay, if this conversation grew out of, our students talking about hip hop in class, then how can I integrate hip hop? What do I need to do as an educator to learn more about hip hop and mental health? Because I recognize that his depression was the reason why he was struggling in school. So after this conversation, like I said, I started researching, and I wanted to help not only him but other students. And since this year's theme looks at stories and histories of hip hop, I wanted to see how hip hop treats the topic of mental health in the African American community. And we know it's a taboo subject. Here recently, if you've watched Being Mary Jane, Empire, people are starting to talk more and more about mental health issues in our community. My research directed me to Dr. Claire Anthos' report, and she wrote a very detailed report exploring the mental health crisis affecting African American adolescents. And she lists 4 social and environmental stressors that Black men deal with, the first one being racism. And she states that it can lead to a reduced socioeconomic status, poor living conditions, and diminished access to resources that might trouble somebody as they're trying to work their way through the world. It can lead to psychological and physiological reactions, which can bring about an adverse change, usually some type of violence that they perpetuate on somebody or on themselves, or the acceptance of negative stereotypes, which can cause negative self-evaluations that have a damaging effect on one's psychological well-being. And so I want to read to you, with his permission, of course, what he wrote for his reflective essay at the end of the semester, which really speaks to the negative stereotypes that can cause students to have issues. I always ask them, reflect on your semester, tell me what you did well, what you can improve upon, did you waste your time, are you cut out for college? And this is what he wrote, and I'm obviously condensing it for time. I look at myself as a that was lucky enough to make it to college, so I still acted as if I didn't have something special in front of me. This year was more about getting a feel for the college life while still trying to get good grades and enjoy being in college. Am I cut out for college? I think I am. I just have to get over my procrastinating ways and get over the mindset that I'm just a that made it to college. College isn't hard if you can manage your time properly, and I can manage my time. I just think my decision-making skills are sort of bad, and I feel as if I do better work when it's at the last minute, but I might be wrong. I know this is my only way out of the hood, and the only way I will be able to become successful and help the people that I love live a better life. I can last 4 years, and I can earn my degree with honors. All I have to do is get my mind right and focus on what's in front of me and leave the past in the past. A lot of people think I can't make it. They think I'm not cut out for this life, so I have to prove them wrong just because I know I can make it. I can make it out of college with a degree. If I didn't come to college, I would be incarcerated or in a cemetery somewhere. I'm one of the only people I know who finished high school, and probably the only one who was a college student. I might not be the typical college student, but I'm just as smart. The only difference is that I come from where nobody makes it at all. So this is what he wrote in his reflective essay, which touched me very deeply, simply because he is an extremely bright student. I'm happy to say he's still here and he's doing well and he's thriving now. But like I said, this conversation and the interaction with him led me to look at the mental health crisis within our community, but through a hip hop gaze. So racism, like I said, being one stress. Family stress, such as poverty, is also directly linked to increased levels of psychological distress. So imagine, and many of you are college students, or you can think back on your time where you have to hustle up the money to pay for your tuition, hustle up the money to pay for books, and then there's an additional expense that you didn't think about. That's stressful. Then if you can't call home and ask somebody for money, that's an added layer of stress. Then if your teacher is saying, why don't you have what you need to do well in my course, that, compounds the stress upon stress. So family stress can definitely play a huge factor in that. Educational stress also is one reason why African Americans have issues with mental health, simply because of the lack of positive images in the media. There was a recent study that I think the Huffington Post reported on. I'm not sure who wrote it, but that the lack of positive images in the media for African American males affects their self-esteem. So that's very important. And then also the issue with the school to prison pipeline. That's a very real situation. The prison industry has been privatized, and they have to find somebody to fill those beds. And so now you see more and more African American students being suspended at an early rate. Certain behaviors are criminalized in school. And you can't go to school and act a fool, but certain things just seem a bit extra to get suspended for. If you're not sitting properly in class, or you may talk back to the teacher one or too many times, which is problematic in itself, but still. So, like I said, the school to prison pipeline is not a myth, and so a lack of culturally sensitive curriculum is a problem that can add stress, and also the lack of educators who don't have a sympathy or an understanding of the cultures that they're dealing with. The fourth one is an urban stress, such as community violence, and that can also affect one's development. So the stress of living in deprived and dangerous neighborhoods can take a toll on one's mind. When you think about all the killings and murders we hear about in the news, how many people actually get some type of counseling for the stress of seeing someone that they love killed? If you're standing outside hanging out with your friends for whatever reason and your friend is shot, what's the likelihood that that young man or young woman actually got some type of mental health assistance in processing that? So urban stress can definitely lead to what we all know as post-traumatic stress syndrome. We hear a lot of that when we talk about the young men and women coming back from war, and they're dealing with the stresses of integrating back into society, and then also dealing with the memories of being in war. But we have war zones here as well, and so people are struggling to manage those emotions and feelings. So like I said, these stressors lead to a number of mental health conditions, and in this report she mentions post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, suicidal thoughts, schizophrenia, and survivor's guilt. And then I also add something called tributes, where people reminisce and think about how they made it out of a particularly tough situation. And a lot of hip hop music has that. And I'll show you some videos in a second. Pharoah Monch, I think it was earlier in the month, he released his latest CD, which is called Post-Traumatic Stress Syndrome. And he actually talks about mental health in the community and how his music helped him. So we're going to take a look at this clip. It's about 6 minutes long, so bear with me, but it's worth watching.
Fans have been waiting since 2011 for this Tuesday, the release date of hip-hop artist Pharoah Monch's new album. Here's a clip from the album trailer. The new album is titled PTSD, following his last album, War, and grapples with questions of gun violence, addiction, depression, and the social and cultural pressures that prevent people from seeking out help for mental health issues. Munch narrates much of the album from a first-person perspective and draws on his own experiences dealing with depression, including induced by prescribed medication. The album follows a kind of dystopian theme, but firmly conveys a message of self-preservation. Joining me now is Pharoah Monch. So nice to have you here.
So nice to be here.
Why this album now?
Just following the War album, I thought it would be fitting to come behind that with post-traumatic stress disorder, just for the theme alone, but not just for, you know, a cool title, but to really delve into some of the issues I was going through as well, and be a little bit more transparent with this record than I've been in the past. And, you know, instead of just having metaphors and double entendres, really go introspective with the record and talk about, you know, some of my issues with depression.
This week, there was the very sad story of Karen Washington committing suicide, and I knew that we had you booked, and I wanted to ask you about the so frequently unacknowledged psychic pain that so many people of color experience.
Definitely. I mean, you know, growing up in the community, you look at mental issues as, you know, we're strong and my parents were hardworking, and it's something that's looked at as a weakness. So you kind of push through it, sometimes not even realizing what the issue might be. And not until in my story with the album, I had a stint with the dentist, and he looked at the cocktails of medication I was taking, and he took me in his office and he was like, do you realize that this specific cocktail causes depression? And I didn't even realize what I was going through until that moment. And it dawned on me. And, you know, I take from that experience and I write about it on the album. So, yeah, in the Black community, it's definitely, over the years, has been looked at as a weakness, you know.
Your song Damage is the third part of a trilogy written from the perspective of a bullet.
Right.
What does that teach us? What do we learn when we take that perspective?
I mean, just from a writing perspective, you know, you don't have to be first person all the time, but, you know, this is my third time writing from that perspective. So, in this time, it's a more outraged bullet. Bullet has no caring. It doesn't care what name is written on it. It's more maniacal and crazy this time, the bullet. So, you know, it also extends itself to mental issues with people with guns and, you know, guns getting in the wrong hands of people with issues. So it all alludes back to the topic on the album.
We've been spending most of this hour talking about race and our difficulty in having this conversation about race. And I kept thinking to myself as I was listening to the new album and also going back and reviewing your body of work, how might the Obama years have been different if all of us were listening very carefully to and taking seriously your work and the work of other independent artists, Jean Grey and others? What would we know about race in America that is now out of the public conversation or that we're getting wrong?
I think, you know, for the most part with hip hop, what's beautiful about it, for me, it has always embraced all of the races very easily since its inception. And I think that's what's beautiful about music in general, especially hip hop. So it's a foregone conclusion that, you know, hip hop embraces everything, embraces people in a very beautiful way.
We had Harry Belafonte on the show earlier this year, and he has been calling for artists, particularly hip-hop artists and artists of a new generation, to be socially involved. I know that you actually had an early release of one of your songs right after the Zimmerman verdict, in part because of your sense of wanting to engage. What should hip-hop or what do you see hip-hop doing that is engaged in social policy?
I think, you know, you should be honest as an artist. And I mean, for me, it affected me deeply. So you want to do music and speak out and do what you can and even be physically there and active if you can. But for me as an artist, you know, I try to get these emotions out through my music to heal, or somebody's feeling the same way they could connect or even, you know, spur a conversation about the situation. So that's just my truth, you know. And if you're feeling it, and you're honest about it, then you should write about it and do music about it.
I am definitely feeling the new music. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here and for talking about the album, and also for putting so much of yourself, the vulnerability of yourself, at the core of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so he opens up and talks about his feelings. There's one video on his new album that we're going to take a look at.
Gotta move on, gotta let go. Would've opened my eyes if I would've known. After all of this time, took my heart to mend, that I'd turn around and be broken again. Gotta move on, gotta let go. Would've opened my eyes if I would've known. After all of this time, took my heart to mend, that I'd turn around and it'd be broken. They told me to see the glass half full, cause some see it as half empty. I chose to see the glass twice the size it needed to be. Smashed it against the wall in the kitchen. On the floor going through withdrawals, I was itching. She rescued me, my heroin, to the end. But then she morphed into heroin in a syringe. Around my bicep, I would tie a shoestring. Tap 5 times to find a vein in it. Squeeze 7 cc so I can see the 7 C's. And CC all my friends so they can see what I was seeing. But what they saw was a despicable human being, so I guess they just wasn't seeing what I was seeing. Convert 2 into 1, an indivisible plan to discover what dreams may come for this invisible man. Sentimental education, beautiful but the dam was constantly catching fire. Richard Pryor, my skin deteriorated, family infuriated by the myriad of tracks, but my train never came. So humiliated, started begging for change, failed rehabilitation, so the scars still remain. Nice clothes became frayed, so isolated and afraid. I smell like an animal, my teeth enamel decayed, and I'm relocated in Alabama now. On that Malox in Atlanta now. It won't stop the burn. Constantly searching for the answers how I can kiss the sky without a handsome, but it's so hard to learn. Gotta move on, gotta let go. Would've opened my eyes if I would've known. After all of this time, took my heart to mend, that I'd turn around and be broken again. Broken again.
Okay, so Pharaoh Monch, like I said, is recently sharing with people his struggles with depression. And then we also have J. Cole, his album, it escapes me. I'll just pull up the video. in an attempt to, I guess, give voice to those who might feel shy about talking about it, there's now an Okay Not to Be Okay initiative where artists, various artists, are talking about their experiences and how music is helping them. And so this is J. Cole talking about his bout with depression.
What's up, y'all? This is J. Cole, and it's okay not to be okay. When you listen to the album, you'll notice how it flows from darkness to light, from like hell to heaven, depression to happiness. It literally was a way out. Like I wrote, and even the songs that didn't make the album, but definitely songs that made the album, I'm writing my way out of a negative place, a darker place. And when I say darker place, it's like there's no suicidal thoughts, but you're talking to a person whose mind was strong. Like I had nothing but positive thoughts, and you got to that, like, even had the balls to move from Fayetteville to New York, not knowing nobody, just because you feel like you're going to make it in the music business. You know what I mean? And then for that to actually happen. And then to feel like, yo, I'm going to drop, boom, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to get signed. And then you get signed, and it's like there's a mentality that I had that was never shaken, and it was quiet. It wasn't outspoken. It was a quiet. It was all in here. So the minute where that changes, you know what I mean? And now I'm dealing with a mind state that I never had to deal with before, which is like fighting all these negative thoughts. That's the dark place I'm talking about. Like self-confidence kind of shattered, you know what I mean? And like trying to fight against that, writing my way out of it, you know what I mean? And just this whole album was writing my way out of that place. Because I had never had to deal with that before. Like I was you know what I mean? I was a happy kid. I wasn't like a down kid. Like I observed life and I saw like it for its positives and negatives, but I wasn't like a depressed child, you know what I mean? So when I had to deal with that type of mind state, I wasn't speaking on it. So then when I tell people like, yo, you know, I was up for this whole album, like, you know, I was like doubting myself this whole time. Like, what? You serious? But it was real to me. I was like, yo, pressure is real, man. That's why people jump off of buildings, man, like, and just end it. It doesn't matter what the story was behind the pressure. Pressure is pressure. LeBron James had pressure. He makes millions of dollars. But when he wasn't winning them chips, please believe he was stressed. Had to be. Because that pressure is real. And sometimes the pressure is so strong, you can't even see what you got in front of you, which is like, you can't see that like you got a real life in front of you. You got friends that love you, family that love you, kids that love you. But you're just so worried about this that it dominates all your thoughts and it now interferes with your life. And that's when people end it. You got college students that end it. And just because it was the pressure and the competitive nature of school was too much for them to take. And we know like, yo, it's just college, man. You know what I mean? You'll be all right. But pressure feels the same no matter what situation you're in.
So Pharoah Monch and J. Cole are some contemporary artists who are talking about their issues. Didn't mean that. But there are some older artists coming out of the 90s who also had an element of mental health in their music. How many are you familiar with the Ghetto Boys? Yeah, and My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me was extremely popular. And if you look at, we're going to take a look at the video, the clean version.
I sit alone in my four-cornered room staring at candles. Who got me? We on the radio, dude? Yeah. Oh, all right. Let's take this here. At night I can't sleep. I toss and turn. Candlesticks in the dark. Visions of bodies being burned. Four walls closing in, getting bigger. I'm paranoid, sleeping with my finger on the trigger. My mother's always stressing I ain't living right, but I ain't going out without a fight. See, every time my eyes close, I start sweating and blood starts coming out my nose. It's somebody watching the act, but I don't know who it is, so I'm watching my back. I can see him when I'm deep in the covers. When I awake, I hear a car burning rubber. He owns a black hat like I own, a black suit and a cane like my own. Some might say take a chill beat, but I can't, G, cause there's somebody trying to kill me. I'm popping in the clip when the wind blows. Every 20 seconds got me peeping out my window. Investigating the joint for traps. Checking my telephone for taps. I'm staring at the woman on the corner. It's messed up when your mind is playing tricks on you. I make big money, I drive big cars, everybody know me. It's like I'm a movie star, but late at night, something ain't right. I feel I'm being tailed by the same sucker's headlights. Is it that fool that I ran off the block? Or is it that clown last week that I shot? Or is it the one I beat for $5,000? Thought he had cane, but it was gold, man, a flower. Reached under my seat, grabbed my pocket for the suckers. Ain't no use to me lying, I was scared than a monster. Took the left in the Popeyes and Bell Dot quick. If it's going down, let's get it over with. Here they come, just like I figured. I got my hand on a chrome-plated trigger. When I saw, I make you start giggling. 3 blind, crippling, crazy senior citizens. I live by the sword. I take my boys everywhere I go because I'm paranoid. I keep looking over my shoulder and peeping around corners. My mind is playing tricks on me. Day by day it's more impossible to cope. I feel like I'm the one that's doing dope. Can't keep a steady hand because I'm nervous. Every Sunday morning I'm in service, praying for forgiveness and trying to find an exit out the business. I know the Lord is looking at me, but yet and still it's hard for me to feel happy. I often drift when I drive, having fatal thoughts of suicide. Bang and get it over with. And then I'm worry-free, but that's nonsense. I got a little boy to look after, and if I died, then my child would be a bastard. I had a woman down with me, but to me it seems like she was down to get me. She helped me out in this, but to me she was just another chick. Now she's back with her mother. Now I'm realizing that I love her. Now I'm feeling lonely. My mind is playing tricks on me.
This year, Halloween fell on a weekend. Me and ghetto boys are trick-or-treating, robbing little kids for bags, till an old man got behind our rags. So we speeded up the pace, took a look back, and he was right before our face. We were in for a squabble, no doubt, so I swung and tried to take him out. He was going down, we planned, but this wasn't no ordinary man. He stood about 6 or 7 feet. Now that's the creep I be seeing in my sleep. So we triple teamed on him, dropping them 5th Ward B's on him. The more I swung, the more blood flew. Then he disappeared, and my boys disappeared too. Then I felt just like a fiend. It wasn't even close to Halloween. It was dark as death on the streets. My hands were all bloody from punching on the concrete. Aw, man, homie, my mind is playing tricks on me.
So the Ghetto Boys, My Mind is Playing Tricks on Me, discusses a few things. Obviously, the suicidal thoughts of taking your own life, the schizophrenia, where it's a combination of hallucinations, delusions, and thinking that people are out to get you, the paranoia. And it also obviously lends itself to the depression. One more item that I want to show you all talks about survivor's guilt. And we're going to take a look at Bone Thugs. See you at the crossroads.
Hail Mary, oh Mary, don't you tell the mother not to mourn. Martha, don't you mourn. Pharaoh's army, you know they've been drowned. Singing Mary, oh Mary, don't you tell the mother not to mourn. Martha, don't you mourn. Mourn.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you, when judgment comes for you. What you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you, 'cause it's gonna come for you.
I'm making it for water, easy, see something Charlie. Little Google guy got it, and I'm gonna miss everybody out of roll and roll. Okay, look at the white flag and play for dust, and they play too deep for being sad. Little legs I got to be. Tell me your piece of the seats, would it please? Marry me by my grand new way. You can't go on a
God bless you, working on a plan to heaven. Follow the Lord on 24/7 days. God is who we praise, even though the devil's all up in my face, but he keeping me safe and in my place. Say grace to the gates we race, without a change to face the judge. And against my soul with books. Grudge because there's no mercy for thugs. Ooh, what can I do? It's all about the family and how we grow. Can I get a witness? Let it unfold. We live in our lives, so we turn our soul. Hey, hey.
And we're praying, we're praying, we're praying, we're praying. Every day, every day, every day, every day. And we're praying, we're praying, we're praying, we're praying. Still with laces. Now follow me, road stroll. Whether it's till it's Saturday, come. Let's take a visit to the people that's long gone there. While in these dead terrible. Instead of keeping up with family. Exactly how many days we got lasting? While you laughing, we're passing the way. So y'all rest our souls, 'cause I know I'ma meet you up at the crossroad. Y'all know we never ever got love with them both thugs, baby.
This long gone, really wish you could come home. But when it's time to die, gotta go bye-bye. All the little thug could do was cry. Why they killed my dog? Yeah, man, I miss my Uncle Charles, y'all. And he shouldn't be gone in front of his home. What they did to Boo was wrong. Who's so wrong? Gotta hold on, gotta stay strong. When it comes, better believe on. Gotta show that you can lean on.
And we pray, we pray, we pray, we pray. Every day, every day, every day, every day. And we pray, we pray, and we pray, and we pray. Every day. See you at the crossroads. See you at the crossroads. See you at the crossroads. See you at the crossroads.
And I'm gonna miss everybody, and I'm gonna miss everybody. And I'm gonna miss everybody, and I'm gonna miss everybody, and I'm gonna miss everybody. And I'm gonna miss everybody.
Living in a hateful world, sending me straight, that's how we roll. Living in a hateful world, sending me straight, that's how we roll. Living in a hateful world, sending me straight, that's how we roll. And I'm missing a good little YSI, he told me we lived and
What's up with that
died.
money, y'all? See my bigger cousin was home. Somebody really, everybody wanna test us down. Getting this sneeze instead of easy to fall. And nobody sitting there cause they intending on that they didn't win any. Wanna come again, again and again. Tell me what you gonna do.
Can somebody, anybody tell me why? Can somebody, anybody tell me why? We die, we die. I don't wanna die. So wrong, wrong. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely. See you at the crossroads, so you won't be lonely.
The survivor's guilt is a sense of surviving tragic events. And so Bone Thugs represents, you see in the video, some of their friends are dying. Some people are just, like Uncle Charles, looks like he might have died just natural causes perhaps. There wasn't any violence per se as a part of his death. But what I found that within the narrative of hip hop, it's a lot of tribute songs and songs that talk about that survivor's guilt. We don't have time to look at that, but Tupac has songs, Heaven for a G, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, they reminisce over you. When it comes to tribute songs, those songs talk about making it out of those difficult situations. So you have Dear Mama by Tupac, Puffy, I'll Be Missing You, Renee by the Lost Boys, Method Man, You're All I Need to Get By. And so you find that the artists talk about the love of their women in these songs, also the love of their family members. And Ghostface Killer's song, All That I Have Is You. If you have time, look that video up. It's a really good assessment of the urban stress that people go through and make it out. I want to close my presentation with Mrs. Jennifer King from Counseling Services. Hip Hop's fifth pillar is about knowledge. And so we need to let our students know that we have a resource on campus. And so she's going to talk briefly, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have. Mrs. King.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Jennifer King, and I'm a counselor in the Student Center, which is over where the CAF is, in the green zone. I was watching these videos, and they're very powerful. We have so many students who are struggling with something. Well, people just in general, but the students are struggling with something. If they get the courage to come in, we can help them. Almost all the time. If we can't help them, we can help get them to other resources outside of campus where they can get help. It's not okay. It's okay to not be okay. That's something I like to say to whatever students I talk to, because all of us have points in our life where we're not okay and where we go through stuff. And one of the big things is it's about knowing that you're not alone. And stepping up and just knowing that sometimes you need to ask somebody for help. And if there's nobody in your family, if there's nobody that you're close to that you feel like you can do that, that's what we can do. And we tell students all the time, once you come into counseling, you've got us till you leave, and then you've still got us. You can still call us for things. Stigma is a big thing. People don't want to come into counseling because they might be called crazy. Only crazy people talk to counselors. And people come into counseling for everything. They come in to get a stapler. They come in to get a Band-Aid. I always have candy on my desk. They come in to get candy. So we try really hard to kind of squash that taboo myth that you have to have something wrong with you to come in there. And we welcome everybody to come in there. We're available all the time. Literally. You can, if you know us, if you're one of our clients, then you have our phone number. If you just need to call us anyway and it's after hours, ASUPD will know how to get a hold of us. And it's not a career where you're just available from 8 to 5. We're there all the time. Like I said, we will do what we can to help you. And stress, depression. I've seen so many things just this week. It's been a very busy week with it being the end of the semester and finals coming up and research papers being due. Those are huge things that, in fact, I've had people in tears every day in my office from being overwhelmed. And we can help. We can help break things down. We can help you make things more manageable and not feel so overwhelmed. And, it's essential to do these things to be successful. And we're the place to start, to give you these tips and to help you get on that road, or anybody to get on that road. Did you want me to talk specifically about depression or any of that stuff? Okay. Questions, or wait for you? Does anybody have any questions for me? I have some cards. I have some stuff to give y'all if anybody wants anything. And then I have one thing on mental health wellness, because it's just as important to take care of ourselves and keep ourselves mentally healthy as it is physically healthy. And that's something we try to promote in our center as well. All right, thank you very much.
Any questions? All right, that's the end of my presentation. I appreciate your time. Be blessed and be well.